Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Win Today. Now, we want you guys to know this is very interactive, so please leave your questions and concerns in the comment section. We'll answer them live. And I want to remind you to please keep your arms and legs in your chair at all times, because your host is a transformational tour guide, and she's here to take you for a ride to get you to your goals and dreams. So, ladies and gentlemen, your host, Emmy.
Thanks, Doug. Thank you so much. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Absolutely.
It seems a little low today.
A little low today?
Yeah, I don't need much, but I just need a little bit, just a little bit.
All right, there you go.
I'm so excited. And, you know, when we first started this podcast and my new book that's coming out, it's all about how do we go forward in our lives? How do we look at, most of us have limiting beliefs that hold us back. A lot of women that I've come across with, myself included, in our lives, we've had limiting beliefs that have held us back from going forward for our goals and dreams, right? And that's what we're here today to talk about even more. And when I was thinking about who I wanted Doug as my first guest, there was really one name that came to mind. And I'm going to maybe get a little emotional about this because my girl, Danielle Gantt, we're going to bring her on in a second, but I just want to read you this. And I found this on her Facebook page as her cover photo. And man, does this sum it up perfectly. This is what she writes. And she discovered that she was fierce and strong and full of fire, and that not even she could hold herself back because her passion burned brighter than her fears. And I thought that really summed up what we're trying to do here together. What I've been really, driving home in these last few episodes of our podcast, what I speak in my book about is how do we go forward in our lives despite things that held us back, despite fears, despite doubts, despite limiting beliefs, despite our past, despite past circumstances. This woman has done all of this. And so when I was really thinking of who I wanted to interview as my first guest, really her name was the only one to come to my mind, because my girl, and I call her my girl because we have a lot in common, but so much different about us. She had every excuse not to win in her life. She had every excuse not to go forward. She had every reason to play the victim card. She had every reason to make every freaking excuse there is on the planet as to why she couldn't level up in her life. Blame others, blame her past, stay on the sidelines, blame her past experiences, past obstacles, but yet she used all of that to fuel her. She really is the queen of using obstacles as the way. She fell, but she got back up, not once, but twice, countless times in her life. And she used her mistakes as learning lessons to fuel her forward. She looked in the rearview mirror only long enough to say, okay, I don't want to be back there. I want to go forward. And so today she truly, in my opinion, has become the dominant force in her own life. And I'm just blessed and honored that she's given us her time and attention today to share her story, which is incredibly powerful, her experiences, which are incredibly inspiring and motivating. They motivate me every time I hear them. And so I want to welcome my girlfriend, my dear friend, my fellow transformational coach, Danielle Gantt, to our podcast episode today.
I am like chills listening to you give me that introduction. Like I'm over here getting emotional. That's amazing. Thank you. Like honestly, thank you.
It was tough to get through that, girlfriend, without crying myself, because Danielle and I recently spent a week together in Cancun, Mexico. Who doesn't freaking love that? Yeah. But at the end of our time there, Danielle was basically in the pool, and she had a group of women around her completely captured by her story. And I've heard bits and pieces of her story, but I don't know that I've ever heard it that way. Everyone wouldn't move. This was late in the day. We had places to be, but nobody wanted to leave her side because she was telling this incredibly powerful story. And so I want to really dive into this a little bit. We're going to try to condense this to 30 minutes, but we could go on forever. She truly is the queen of how to move forward in your life. So I'm going to call you D. I like to call you that. I'm going to call you that for today's purposes. But D, take us back a little bit to where it all began, right? Your childhood and your parents. And we were talking briefly yesterday in preparation for today about what that looked like for you. So paint a brief picture, if you will, as to where you got your start in life and what would that, what that looked like.
Brief. Yikes. Wait a second. How do I do that? You know me. I'm like the queen of chatter. I could write a book Someday maybe you will inspire me to do that. So,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, let's go way back. So I was a girl, just trying to find her place from a really young age. My mom moved around a lot. We never stayed in one home for more than a year. I grew up with, you know, and I was kind of thinking about this morning when I was in the shower and how I wanted to kind of piece it together, you know, and I always have this fear of, I don't want to hurt anybody in my past talking about my experiences. But it's a healing thing to do. And so I want to start out by saying I know everybody in my world and in my past was just doing the best job that they knew how to do at the time, just like I have done so many times in my life. I grew up with a mom who was on welfare my entire life. We moved around a lot. We always lived in some sort of government housing. I had a younger sister who I looked after a lot, and she was my entire world. At times she felt like she was my daughter. My mom worked a lot of odd jobs. My mom and dad were divorced at a really young age, at around 2. My dad was an alcoholic my entire life. And, you know, again, my dad was just doing the best he could do as well, but there was a lot of abuse. There was a lot of, you know, just things that you wouldn't say to your child, you know, and things that have happened. Fast forward to, you know, my middle school, high school days. I became a mom at a really young age. I grew up really fast. I had to. If I wanted to figure it out, I had to. I have always been a chameleon, right? So you move around, you have to be a chameleon and fit into the places in your world that you go. And I was a master at that craft. I still am. I feel like I can morph and fit into any situation I am presented with, and I'm not afraid of it. But that didn't come from not having a life where I had to put on that cap all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me just ask you a question there before you go on about your mom. You know, you had mentioned to me when we were talking yesterday about not wanting to repeat the pattern, right? And I love that you say that, you know, my parents did the best they could. I mean, here you had a mom that was on welfare, moved around a lot. You had a father who was alcoholic, but yet you preface it by saying they did the best job that they could. Yeah. You know, and so knowing that, what, you know, as a mother today, what's one takeaway that you could say I got from my parents, right? Even though that you didn't have this idyllic childhood, what is one thing that you took from them into your own role as a mom, would you say?
Absolutely. So right off the bat, I think about my dad. I was never allowed to cry. I was never allowed to be weak. I was never allowed to stay down. I wasn't even allowed to be down, according to my dad. He was a fighter, and he taught me to be a fighter. He taught me to be strong, even in moments where that was the last thing I wanted to be, was strong. And I took that from him. He's always been a fighter. And, you know, and I've utilized that in my world so much. My mom is the most loving person you will ever meet. My mom is kind and sweet, and she loves her kids. And really, I'll tell you honestly, it's only new for me to be able to give my parents grace, because for so long I have been so angry at them.
Yes.
I've held on to so much hate.
Oh my gosh, that was actually going to be my next question. At any point, did you blame them for what followed in your life after that?
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, so much of the situations that I got myself into, I felt like came from the fact that I didn't have a super solid upbringing. I didn't have a lot of structure. I didn't have the best guidance. I didn't have your, you know, cookie cutter, picture perfect childhood. I just didn't. And I blamed them. I blamed them almost up until this past year when I met my now boyfriend. him and I had a conversation about something separate from this that led into parenting and how we're all just doing the best job that we know how in that given moment. And I was like, and I got into kind of an argument with him, and I'm like, no, that's BS. Like, they could have done better. They knew better. And he went on to explain to me, but they didn't. At that time, they didn't. Think about times in your life where you have thought you were doing the best that you could do. And now you could look back and go, was it or wasn't it? But yes, at the moment, you did think you were doing the best you could. And they were.
Yeah. And we'll circle back in a little bit to the shift that you just recently made about not blaming them. But was there ever a point when you were getting a little bit older where you saw the trajectory of your life and you said, I don't want to be like them. I don't want to be like the status quo. I don't want to be on welfare. I don't know. And talk a little bit about that. Was there a shift at any point that you said, I see something different for my life?
Yeah. And, I think it kind of always was that for me, because something within myself, I always felt like I was better than this, or better than the bare minimum, better than I myself, guys, was on welfare, living in public housing up until 7 years ago. And I knew always, though, that I didn't want that for my future. I would hustle and grind and work lots of jobs, and my kids took care of each other a lot. My middle daughter, my youngest daughter, they kind of were the moms of the group. And when I had to go out and hustle and grind, because I knew that I didn't want them to have to always go to the WIC office to get our stamps so we could get milk, and to go to the local church for our Christmas gifts. And I wanted them to be able to go to soccer camps and do all the things that I dreamed for them, And so I knew that I wasn't going to be complacent with that. That wasn't where I was meant to be ever. Yeah.
And you had different, you had different partners along the way, but you never lost this fighting. You call yourself a fighter, right? You've never lost this belief in yourself. So talk about that and how you've taught your daughters to be the same way. They've had fathers, they've had father figures, you've had different men in your life, but how have you always stayed the dominant force and had a vision of where you wanted to go as a woman, felt empowered as a woman, even though you've had all these, had different partners along the journey?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
So at a really young age, guys, I honestly was looking for family. I was looking for inclusion in something, and I met my older two kids' father. His family was this tight-knit group of people who I thought were, a family that I had never experienced. Barbecues, Christmases, everybody was all about everybody and including everybody and family, and I didn't have that. And so I got sucked into this unit of people, but very early on, I realized that what I was looking for within this group of people was not going to serve me or my children long term. Guys, I ended up pregnant at 15 years old, and I had to make a hard decision at that young age to become a mom or to make a different decision. And I chose a different decision, and I think about that all the time. Move along 6 months later, here Danielle ends up pregnant again. And I look back and I'm like, wow, and I think about my life back then, and I think about my life now. And here I am at 16 years old, becoming a mom. And you have to decide, are you going to show up as this adult for these children, for yourself, or are you going to let your parents and a community raise your kids? And are you going to just take the handouts and no? And I never was going to do it. And I knew.
I love that, Danielle. And I love that you talk about how you made a decision. And we talk a lot about this on the show and in my book. It really comes down to that, doesn't it? Right? So you had every excuse to say, I'm this mother by 15, 16. I had this shitty upbringing. I'm making a lot of excuses, right? You had every reason to not choose a different path, but you had to make a decision. And I think that's where a lot of folks get hung up, is that we have the choice every day. What do what are we going to do today? Are we going to make a decision to go forward, pick ourselves up, choose to be happy, choose to be positive, or are we going to choose because it is a choice, right? So that is extremely powerful what you just said. You made a decision to to write a new chapter for yourself and your kid.
Yes. And so I chose mom. I chose to be a mom, and I chose to be the best mom that I knew how to be at that time. I look back and guys, I made lots of mistakes. Was there things that I could have done so much better for my children? Yes, absolutely. But the fact of the matter is I was a kid myself trying to figure it out. But I made a choice. I never did drugs. I wasn't a big drinker. I dove head first into what I believed motherhood should look like. I moved out on my own. I got my GED. I went to college early and became a nursing assistant. I was not going to stay low. I wanted to be high. I wanted to show my kids that just because you're a teen mom, just because you chose a partner who is never going to show up as a father in their life, just because you're on welfare, just because you maybe had an abortion at 15, those things don't define you. Just because you had parents who were alcoholics or a mom.
Yep. Those things don't define you.
They don't. They absolutely don't. You know?
Yep. And, I love your story, girl, because there's so many times. So what would you say to people? There's so many times maybe, you couldn't get out of bed in the morning. You're thinking, gosh, how am I going to go further? I'm in government housing. I'm on welfare. I'm on, I have food stamps. I got these kids, I don't really have a solid partner over here. What kept you going every day? Like what kept you getting up after, day after day, and, you kept getting knocked down, but you kept getting back up. What helped you do that, would you say?
I remember there was a time when I feel like I was 11 months pregnant with Isabel, my middle daughter. And I was scared. I was really scared because their father, my oldest two, I knew I was in it alone, very much alone. And I was terrified. And I remember laying on my couch, and I was tear-soaked, mascara stained on my couch. And I actually remember thinking, am I going to damage my baby because I've been crying for the last 2 hours, right? And in that moment, there was a part of me that was like, I don't know if I can go on. I don't know if I can give these kids the life they deserve. I don't know if I am cut out for this job. And something in that moment, and I think about that question you asked me, what is it that made you keep going? And there has been different things in my life, because let's be real, as much of a fighter and as a go-getter as I am, there's been lots of moments where I have struggled and had fleeting thoughts of, can I do this? Do I want to do this? But most of the time, until most recently, my why, my reason to keep kicking ass is my kids. Every time, every incident, every situation, it is those kids.
I love that.
Most recently, and I'll tell you about my newest revelation when we get closer to my new.
Yeah. So, and that's, we talk about this a lot in our line of work, right? We talk about everyone needs to dial into their why, know their why. There has to always be something bigger and something greater that's guiding you forward, right? Yeah. You have to also, in addition to having this why, you have to have this crazy, insane belief in yourself. So on some level, even though you didn't have anybody really, believing in you so much, you must have had intrinsic belief in yourself that I can go forward, I can do this, I can be better than this, I can rise above this. Would you say that would be true for you in these situations?
Absolutely. And it's funny because I was never raised going to church. I was never raised being a very religious person or anything like that, but I always felt spiritual. I always, from a young age, felt like there was something greater, something bigger than me that kept me going, that kept me pushing for something else. I didn't know what that something else was, but I knew it was something bigger than what I could conjure up and create. Doors always opened for me somehow. Even in moments of total despair, I didn't stay there long. And it was my fight, but I think it was also somebody else, right? Somebody greater than me that saw something in me that was like, what you're going through is what you're going to grow through. And this is never going to be what defines you. This is just going to be your story, Danielle. And I've always said that to myself.
I love it.
It's always been my mantra.
I love it. And we talk about that a lot, using mistakes to fuel us forward, using these past experiences to fuel us forward. You know, maybe you're going through something in your life right now and you're like, why is me? And this is holding me back. And, you know, I look at obstacles truly as the way. When I hit rock bottom, I think, oh my gosh, this is an amazing place to be, because I'm only going to go up. This is only going to be rocket fuel for me when things go bumpy in my life. And so this is really true for you too, Dee. I see this so much in your pattern. So fast forward to today, right? So you found talk about opportunities coming your way and doors being opened, right? An opportunity opened for you to be an entrepreneur and a CEO of your own business. So talk about how stepping into that role as a CEO and an entrepreneur, how that even, you know, built this belief in yourself even more to create a new story for you and your children.
Yeah. So let's kind of go back about 2.5 years ago. Okay. Many of you only know my story from about 2.5 years ago to present. I was in a place in my life, and I was thinking about this, and I'll try to be brief about it, but I was the heaviest I had ever been at almost 200 pounds. I painted this picture that the reason why I had gained all this weight was because I was, in this relationship that was so great, and I was getting fat and happy. And that was what I wanted people to see and believe. But if I'm being really honest, which I just have decided I'm going to get really real and honest with lots of things in my world, I wasn't getting fat and happy because I was in a great relationship. I was in a relationship that was basically a lie. I was not getting fat and happy because I had some awesome support with a partner. And I was not fat and happy because I felt like this person or this situation was going to serve me well in my future. I was fat and miserable and unhealthy, taking 20 different medications on a daily basis just to function, because I was so stressed and so unhappy, not just with that relationship, but that I had allowed myself to even put up with it or be there. Many of you think that I was married and went through a divorce, and I'm going to be very transparent and real with you. A month before I was supposed to walk down that aisle, I was told that my partner didn't want to legally marry me. Every excuse in the book why that wasn't going to be what we were going to do in a month. And so what did I do? I agreed to it. Walked down the aisle, lied to every person in my life because I was embarrassed. I was scared. I was ashamed. And so what happened? I pounded on more weight. I was living a lie, and I was on fake book, faking my life, this relationship. Even my parents didn't know that we weren't legally married.
Yeah.
And so 1 year went by, and I said, no more. I remember sitting on my closet floor bawling, and I didn't want to go on.
Yeah.
I had lived this life of riddled trauma and hardship. And yes, there has been wonderful moments filtered within all of that. So I'm not going to lie and say my life has just been awful. That's not true either. But there has been so much in my young 42 years of life, guys, that one person should not have had to see, deal with, hear, whatever. And I sat there and I thought to myself, well, my kids are older. Who really needs me here? I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to go through another heartache. I had discovered that my partner had been cheating. I was scared. I was scared to start over again. And in that moment, when you ask, what is your why? What was the reason that picked you up off the floor that time and made the decision for you to continue forward? For once in my adult life, my entire life, I decided it was me. I was worth it. Because I had been showing up as a broken version of myself my entire life, just trying to give bits and pieces to everybody, to fill every spot, to fill every relationship. And I was broken. I was broken. And I knew that if I didn't decide to put Danielle first for once in her life, that everybody else was going to always continue to get a broken version of me.
Girl, I love that. I love this line, broken crayon, still color.
Yes,
it's one of my favorite lines of all time. And what you just said there really brings everything that we're doing here together home, because so many women, you walked this path, so many women that we speak to, right, in our lives, they don't put themselves first. They have lived a life of lies. You're not the only one that's lived a life of lies. I certainly have lived a life of lies. Many people that we work with lived a life of lies, of not living their authentic life, not putting themselves first, right? Not putting the oxygen mask on ourselves first. And some of us get lost to varying degrees, right? You really got lost. Other people just get lost in, day to day. But that is amazing that you recognized it was now time for you.
Yeah.
Now time for you. And it meant putting everything into what you could do to go forward. So that's incredible. That's incredible. So what happened next? So
I did. And here's the thing, people always say, and you and I talked about this yesterday. Well, you don't understand. You can't possibly understand what I've been through. You can't possibly understand the life I've lived, the trials and tribulations I've been through. And I could have done that too. And I could have said, I can't do this because I'm weak. I can't do this because I've been through too much, right? The victim mentality. And believe me, there have been lots of times in my life where I have played the victim card. That felt easier for me at the time. And so in that moment, I was watching at the time my fake husband's ex-wife get skinny and happy. And it wasn't just that she was losing weight, but everything about her shined and was different. And her and I had no relationship. In fact, we had a terrible relationship. And I asked my stepdaughter, what's your mom doing? And she said, you're going to have to reach out to her. And it's just been recently that I discovered that Lauren, my stepdaughter, said to her mom, please help Danielle. I love Danielle so much, and I want you guys to get along. I want you to help her. And so my friend Julia reached out to me and said, I'm willing to help you. Like, I want to do this with you. And she helped me lose weight. Yes. But in the process of this, she and this amazing healthy living program that I decided to be all in with helped me discover that putting myself first wasn't selfish, that not only fueling my body with healthy foods and things like that was going to help me get this healthy too. Not only this, but all the relationships in my world that needed major growth and restoration. Honestly, I had a terrible relationship with my middle daughter. We hated each other. I mean, and I know I was a huge contributor of that. But prior to me saying, no, I'm putting me first so that I can get help and be this best version of a mom, of a friend, as a daughter, whatever.
I love that. I love that because, we can either choose to play the victim or we can choose to be the empowered part of our story, right? We can choose to be the dominant force in our own life. And so you made at that point a shift, right? A shift to stop playing the victim card. Maybe. And you had mentioned earlier that you had, just recently stopped blaming your parents. So it's amazing to me when we get our bodies healthy and then the mind follows, right? How we're able to make this pivot and shift in our entire lives. Right? We're able to embrace friendships that maybe we, were once enemies, like, your friend Julia.
Embrace
We were able
friendships that were enemies, but also eliminate friendships that were toxic, that were holding
Right.
us back and not serving our future. It's such an awesome thing. When you
Correct.
start to care about your temple, right, as a whole,
Yeah.
what was once maybe something that you thought was beneficial for your world, you are discovering wasn't, and what you thought wasn't really truly is,
Yeah. And I love this, that you say this. It is easier to play the victim card. It
Yeah.
is so much easier because that's not a ton of work, right? Y'all, like, to be the dominant force in your own life, and to be empowered and say, you know what, I'm going to put the oxygen mask on myself first. It's time to put me first. That takes work.
Yeah.
That takes commitment. That takes a leveling up in your life. And it takes courage to do that. And a lot of people, it's easier to blame. So you had mentioned that you recently made the shift. I'm no longer going to blame people.
Yeah.
I'm no longer going to use these circumstances, these past events to define me. I'm going to now, take charge of my own life for once and for all. So you walked away from this marriage or so-called marriage. And then
He
I'm sorry.
walked away from me, which was the biggest blessing in my whole entire world.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
I maybe would have just stayed.
And things happen for you and not to you.
Yes,
We say that all the time.
1000%.
Happen for you, not to you. Because then what happened, right? Another door was open.
Yeah, so it's been amazing, the things that have transpired since I decided to get healthy. Yes, the year of COVID, okay, it was this dumpster fire year for many of us, but for me, it was probably one of the best years of my entire life. I was getting stronger in every area of my life. Health, mental, relationships, whatever. And I was watching a part of my world crumble. But I'm a fixer. I love to fix people. I like to help. I like to Band-Aid things, which I've learned not to do, right? You deal with the issue. So this person left. My relationships with my children have been night and day more. I mean, growth. You want to talk about growth? Just beautiful. I bought my very first house at 42 years old. I bought my own car for the first time at 42 years old. I also stepped out of my comfort zone because of my daughter pushing me to do so, and joined an online dating app, which, is so just bizarre to me. And I have met the love of my life. And here's what I will say. I take all these situations of my past, right, that I could look at as, oh God, that was awful. Woe is me. Boy, that happened to me, whatever. And I'm like, geez, thank you. Thank you, Lord, for putting that into my world as a stepping stone, showing me actually I deserve and what I don't, and what I'm worth and what I will never tolerate again. And honestly, if I had not had all of these experiences in my life, I would not be who I am, what I am today. And
so true. So true. Yeah. It's you used, it's almost like I can't remember, is it Stripes, that movie? Thank you, sir. May I have another? You used every opportunity for you, not to you, to get you where you are today. All the things that you are today, all the amazing things that's happening in your life, it's because of where you were. Yes. And because you looked at it as learning lessons to put you where you are now. That is unbelievable.
I never had the pedigree for success, okay? I didn't have the setup to be where I am today. I'm telling you, right? And I could use that as the reason why I never elevated or leveled up in my life. But I use all of that as, no, that is exactly why I have contended for everything that I've had in my world, and used every single situation that I have come upon as reasons to do better, be better, level up, and rise up, and and
oh God, girl, it's so good. It's so good what you're saying right now. And we could be on here for another hour, but there's, as we're coming to a close, I want to mention one thing. When we were speaking yesterday, you talked about some people, when they're struggling, they're looking for a white knight. They're looking for somebody to pull them up by their bootstraps. They're looking for, well, this person's not doing this, or that person's not doing that, or a man to come and save them, or whatever it is. And you had said something that really resonated with me. And I want you to touch upon this here as we close out. It starts with us.
It does.
We can't expect somebody else to save us, to fix it. You talked about being the fixer, to make it all better. It starts with us. And so while we can come alongside somebody, right, as you and I do with many clients and coaches and different folks that we work with in our business, we can't do it for them. We can't want it more than it. So can you elaborate on that as we close out a little bit, how it starts with us?
Absolutely. I am a firm believer that you have got to want it more than anybody else in your world wants it for you, right? If you don't want it for you, I can't help. Your partner can't help. Your kids can't help. You have got to want it so bad it hurts. And that doesn't mean every day is going to be that burning desire to want it so bad, right? We're human and we're allowed to have weak moments, okay? But if you're constantly out there looking for someone to save you, but you're not willing to save yourself, you are going to always be let down. I love this because my boyfriend is the biggest advocate of this saying, but he always says, nobody can love you more than you love yourself. And if you don't love yourself, and if you don't desire for more for yourself, if you don't want to put in the grit and the effort and the hustle and the hard work for yourself, you are always going to come up short. Always. Yes, we can come alongside you and support you and link arms with you and be your cheerleader, but I am not going to be your dog walker or your your shuttle bus to constantly keep coming around to pick you up if you're not willing to stay the course with me. And it's true because, especially in the industry that we're in, it's very easy to place blame and to look to find a target for our failures. And really it just boils down to the hard, solid truth that you have to be so fed up with your own BS and excuses that you are going to jump in with both feet, not knowing the temperature of the water.
Yeah. And I was talking about that last podcast. I said, I call bullshit, because a lot of us, we need to be calling bullshit on ourselves.
Yes.
And Danielle, we could just, I feel like picking this whole thing apart even more, but this was so good, girl. And people, please, talking about win today. Yes. If you aren't inspired right now to go out and win today after listening to that, right? Not the pedigree for success, not the greatest upbringing, teenage pregnancies, right? Different fathers for her children, right? Living in public housing, on welfare. The girl is now slaying her own freaking life. She's got an amazing business. She's got an amazing partner. She's got these improved relationships with her kids and her parents. Please, it all begins with making a decision that you are going to change the way you're doing business with yourselves. That's really what it comes down to.
1% better than yesterday, 1%. I mean,
That's
I've made a 1% increase pretty much every day of my life. And if I fall short on, then I pick it up 2% the next day. And it's up to us, guys. It's up to us.
It's all up to us. And as she mentioned earlier, it really begins with a decision, guys. It begins with a decision that you want something different for your life, that you are worth it. So many key takeaways she gave us here, so many golden nuggets. You are worth it. You are fighters. Right? You deserve to have better. You deserve to empower yourselves and take care of yourselves. And you deserve to pick yourself up when it just is a shit show and go on. There's always a reason to go on and to go back at it the next day. Yeah. Girlfriends.
Find your worth, you guys. That is such a hard thing when you are down, but know that you are all worth it. You are all deserving. And I still struggle with that some days, right? When you have trauma in your past and when you have things that have made you believe otherwise, it's work every day. Relationships are work. Health is work. Mental health is work. Do the work. Do the work.
DTW is one of our sayings. Oh, girl, we're going to have you back because you're going to be wait till you see the chat blowing up here. Doug, what do you think? Isn't she amazing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the message is great. No one's going to show up in a helicopter, take you away and save your life.
Yeah.
You gotta do it yourself.
You gotta do it for
Absolutely.
yourself.
Love it.
Well, guys, thank you so much. Danielle, thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me on.
I mean, and it's perfect, guys. And really, this is what we talk about. Go to wintodaybook.com. I'd love your email to pre-register for the book that's launching in early June. But it's really all about this. It's how we become the dominant force in our own lives, how we decide that we are worth it, how we decide to win each day and create really a winning life. And Danielle is the perfect example of how you can do that despite the odds. Despite the odds. So, girl, thank you so much for being here with us today. We'll definitely have you back. You're going to be a fan favorite for sure. And thank you all for giving us your time and attention. And I am so grateful that you take time out of your Tuesday midday to share it with us in our journey here to just create a winning life. And we will see you here next week, Doug, right? Next week.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
thank you guys so much. It was great to hang out with you, and wintodaybook.com. And we'll see you guys all next week. Have a great day. Bye
Bye,
now.
guys.